Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to learn a 3-part jig called Wallop the Spot. Here's the jig with everything in it, and this is what we're aiming for. Over the course of this video, I'm going to show you how to add in all of the building blocks that'll allow you to play this version at whatever pace you want. Don't freak out. All of that is very achievable and very easy. It is simply adding in chords and harmony, little bits of ornamentation. There are triplets, pull-offs, hammer-ons, slides. It's all very easy to do one at a time, and you don't have to play it at that speed. Once you see it transcribed and notated, it all makes a lot of sense. Before we get started, a big thank you and shout out to all of my subscribers and supporters on Patreon. It makes a huge difference and allows me to continue to make banjo and mandolin content for you. With this tune, we're going to focus on jig rhythm, swing, and that ineffable Irish Nyah. And for me, the best way to learn this is by listening to lots of great musicians. So we're going to focus on that in this lesson, as well as all of the fun stuff, the ornamentation, pull-offs and hammer-ons and chords, you name it. It's a really, really nice jig, changes key in the second part, which adds a lot of interest to the tune. So here we go, Wallop the Spot. Before we get started, hit the subscribe and like button and do drop a comment, it makes a big difference. A long time ago, I did a video called How to Put Swing or Nyah into Your Music. And one of the things I suggested, and I think I've done it a few times, is to lilt along with the tune. The emphasis is coming on that first beat of the bar and we're kind of pulsing into it. And so sometimes, because of the mechanics of playing the banjo, there's a lot going on, down, up, down, and moving. If we sing along with it, you can do it in your head, but it's better if you do it out loud, I think. And I'm not a singer, but I'm going to do it anyway. And it can help kind of bring what's already inside in you out into your playing. So just a very quick example of that. Right? Depends on where your singing register is at. The idea is that you're going to go da-dle-dee-dee-dle-dee-rumpity-dee-dle-dee-die. Maybe it's something even in the words of the diddly-die, die-dle-dee-die-dle-dee, that brings that swing, that kind of pulse into the longer first note of each of those. try it. Try it without the banjo, and then try it with the banjo. And I believe that one will kind of pull the other into that swingy rhythm. It's also really important to move your body when you're playing. And even the simple act of swinging back and over, it helps with the overall looseness and relaxation of playing, but it can also help with this jig rhythm that we're going after. Let's talk about pull-offs and hammer-ons. And again, these are very subtle ways to add in an ornament that adds to the softness, I think, of the rhythm, because again, anything that takes out a heavy picked note or a very defined picked note, it just adds to that overall squashiness of the rhythm. That's a brand new way of describing that. Just to dig in slightly on what is happening in some of those. If you're familiar with a pull-off or a pull-off triplet, then you know what's going on. But if you don't, here it is. So the pull-off here happens as a crushed note. So I'm playing F sharp, which is fret 2 on the E string, and I'm playing it, and then just immediately after pulling off to make the E note. Now, an extra note of subtlety on this, because of the way that the tune is running, is to hold the D, high D note. So fret 5 on the A string, hold that down. And you're creating this little zone of resonance. There's a D that's resonating with an E, and it's really nice. Always look out for opportunities to leave your fingers on the left hand for that blend of notes. As we've discussed before, there are two ways to do a triplet in a jig. One is to do it as 1 1 2 3, 1 1 2 3. But you can also do it as 1 2 3 1. Now, if we're going for swing and flow, the 1 1 2 3 triplet is going to add to that. Because it's helping you to bring that elongated emphasis onto the first note. The other way around gives a jig much more sense of expediency by doing the 1 2 3 1. That has its place, absolutely, but for the purposes of swing, we're going to try to lean into the 1 1 2 3. Now, a type of ornament that is going to help will be the runs of triplets as opposed to the single note triplet. So something like that. They're not as rhythmically defined, although the right hand is doing the very same thing. The little run of notes, it adds more of this flow, this ebb and flow, this kind of swing to the music than if you're to do just the single note ornaments. They kind of, from my ear, they pull the rhythm a lot straighter. So here's that jig again, with an emphasis on these kind of 3-note run triplets as much as possible. And even with the single note triplets, making them almost into a fiddle cut. Again, it's about breaking up the metronomic rhythm. Let's focus on chords. The tune is in the key of D. How do I know that? Well, for starters, when it's written out, it has 2 sharps, and that's an indicator that it's, generally speaking, going to be in the key of D or B minor. But it could also be a weird kind of A mixolydian. The easiest piece of advice to give is to say, what's the last note of the tune? The last note is D, so it sounds like it's in the key of D. And that's a fair place to start. And you can say that of each part. So the first part, it ends on the note D. And so that's a good indication that the tune is in the key of D. And eventually your ear will become accustomed and you'll go, all right, that's the key of D. The second half changes key. The key signature doesn't change, and this is where the key signature is only an indication. So the second half starts with either a G chord and straight into an A chord. But it could be an E minor chord as well, depending on who's playing guitar or piano in the background. E minor, E major, E modal. So just watch out for that key change in the second part. It's what makes the tune so interesting. And especially, I think, that run up. So here's the tune with some chords, double stops. a really important way of breaking up the metronomic rhythm of banjo picking, because we can pick down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down on a jig ad infinitum, is to seek out the phrases in the tune. Where is the breath that occurs? So I'm going to play it this time, and I want you to listen out for the phrases. Often they're naturally occurring. The second part of this tune is interesting because it starts with this forward-leaning E chord. So it's an interesting part in terms of the phrasing because it's kind of pushing ahead, if that makes any sense. So listen out for the phrases. It's worth noting that sometimes the phrase runs through the last bar of a part and into the next couple of bars of either the repeat of the part. Second half is a good example of that. That's the end of a phrase to my ear. And then this starts another phrase. And that ends a phrase. So there's a phrase that starts toward the end of that third part, and that new phrase ends 3 or 4 bars into the repeat of the part. Let's do it one more time. It's a great idea to learn by ear. And so I'm going to play this, still keeping it reasonably slow, but I'm going to add the jig, swing, and bounce. I recommend listening to this over and over and over, playing along with it, and allowing that swing and bounce to kind of soak in. One last thing, I am going to teach another tune on mandolin called the Butcher's March, and on Patreon I'm going to put the two together as a set. So you'll have Wallop the Spot and the Butcher's March. Watch out for that. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. If you have, please hit the subscribe and like button.